For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. The voice you are not hearing tonight is Dan Delmar. My wonderful co-host for the last 9 years is off. He's in Toronto tonight. You know, it's family day basically everywhere else in North America except Quebec. Or if it's not President's Day, it's Family Day. It's some holiday somewhere except here. So tonight, it's just myself, Josh Miller, partner at FL Fuller Landau. And on the program tonight, we are going to welcome Miguel Escobar from Future Cities and talk a lot about real estate and architecture and urban planning and the business that he conceived of when he was just 9 years old. Later on the program, we'll welcome Nick Moraitis, tax partner at FL, and we're going to chat about challenges, certainly with the budget coming up next week. There's continued talk about CRA and the changes they made last year, and then, of course, the current challenges that entrepreneurs and business owners face when they want to continue or try and find other ways to split their income with their family members. So that'll be coming up later on the program. But first, entrepreneurial news, and we're going to take advantage of Miguel in studio. And Miguel Escobar from Future Cities, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
And since a couple of the news items that I was reading within the last few days fell on the real estate part of things, I figure we'll get Miguel. He's been involved in real estate and so many aspects for quite a few decades, we'll say, although his youthful appearance doesn't appear on radio. So we'll delve right in. And really, there's one of the articles that I was talking about, and it's about gentrification, neighborhoods, new building, new prospect. There was one article in the Gazette a couple of days ago, and it was about developing St. Viator Boulevard, St. Viator Road in the Plateau. This is one of the older places. We had a few weeks ago, we had Joe and Vince Morena from St. Viator Bagel, and they were certainly, been 60 years on St. Viator Street. The street has changed somewhat or is going to change. And the article really focused on how the developers that are coming in that have, really taken a liking to the street. Actually, one developer in particular, Schiller Lavie, that is buying a bunch of properties and recognizing the value of the street. But with the recognition of a value also comes some increased rents and some, changing the neighborhood. And I know that Miguel, you've been involved in urban planning as part of your experience and professional life. You've been part of city planning. What do you see when gentrification comes to certain neighborhoods? There are businesses that are affected. What do you see? What are the major changes? What are the things that you feel that businesses should kind of keep an eye out for, or maybe find a way to contribute?
Well, it's very hard to see those kind of things coming. I think what is happening in the Plateau in particular is that the value of the properties are going way up much faster than the rents, and the costs of expenses for cities are going up, and politicians have to do a balancing act to keep taxes down and to control them. And unfortunately, for businesses, when politicians need to increase their taxes, they dump that onto the commercial establishments. In general, the split is 1 to 4. So for every dollar that a residential building pays in taxes, a commercial building pays 4 times. Why? Because it's easier to dump it on the commercial establishments because they hardly vote. They don't really have very much representation.
Businesses don't vote. I mean, their owners vote, but they might not necessarily live there.
There is a portion in the law that allows them to do that, but it's very convoluted. It has to be under your own personal name, but most companies don't operate under your own personal name.
Do you think with all the tax increases, and part of it is valuation increases, because it's not just the mill rate, there's valuation. Would you think that, because businesses have the right to contest the value, would you see the contestation process or files that are out there just continue to rise?
Well, that's going to That's going to come very shortly. I think there's going to be a spike in that. There's a lot less offer of product on the market right now, whether it's residential or commercial. So the prices of real estate are going up. I'm seeing people that are actually, we're starting to get the Vancouver and Toronto effect here. Not so much, but it's happening. Sellers are getting what they're asking for, or even more. Since 2008, it was a buyer's market. Now that's turned around.
No question. And listen, with Vancouver and Toronto, I mean, we haven't seen that 15% real estate tax yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
Right.
certainly with the number of immigrants, the number of millionaires. We spoke about this on the program a couple of weeks ago. The number of immigrant millionaires that are coming into the city that are willing to buy and buy and buy. You wonder how long until that 15% tax rate hits here.
Definitely.
As we shift and we kind of think about, there's St. Viator Street, which is, the plateau, and that's one aspect. But there's no doubt, in another article I read on the weekend, it was just more information about the 1540, the project at the 15 and the 40 de Carry and the 40, this monstrous project, developers Carbon Leo. This is something that is going to completely change the landscape of that area, of the TMR, that whole center. And it's mind-boggling on what really is going to get done, and the planning. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think that the engineers that redesigned the Carry Expressway and 40 interchange were expecting this development, because definitely there's going to be a huge increase in traffic. The 1040 is basically a 1030 amélioré, because I think the developers like Carbon Leo have realized that they made certain mistakes with 1030. I mean, it's very popular, but there are a lot of issues with it. And
you mean from a congestion standpoint, or from the whole area around it now, how it
in
developed?
terms of its densification, because 1030 is very lightly dense. You basically have to take your car from one store to another, whereas with an interior mall, you parked your car, you went into the mall, and you walked around, and you picked up your car. The 1030, you have to basically you spend most of the time driving from one parking lot to another. Now, from what I understand, from what I saw in the plans, 1040 will be a lot denser. There'll be a lot more office space, perhaps some residential. It's basically what strip malls will become in the near future, because that is the future of the suburbs.
So it's gonna be a draw. There's no doubt about it, but it's going to create a lot of chaos in the meantime. And then, of course, there's the light rail system that's going to be built. That's projected to be built. Should be, from what I read, done by 2021, the summer of 2021. They're supposed to start building in just a few months' time. And this light rail system, which will really go well beyond where the metros go, and have better access to suburban areas. There's no doubt that it's going to increase the value of homes as well. I believe when I was reading the Quebec Federation of Real Estate Boards, they did a study in 2016, and they said if your home is within 1,500 meters, so basically about a mile or less away from a subway station or a light rail station, the price of a single-family home could be boosted by close to 40%, and the price of a condo close to 20%. So it's not starting to be built yet, but if you want to go on and check out, where this light rail system is going, there's no question that, hey, go buy in that area, because property values should absolutely go up. Thanks, Miguel. There's so much more news, but as we approach, and you're going to come back on and talk about future cities, so we welcome that.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. And in studio with us, we have Miguel Escobar of Future Cities. You heard him a little bit as we were talking about some real estate news in the city. Later on the program, we'll bring in Nick Moraitis, tax partner at Fuller, and the challenges of how do we continue, if possible, to income split with the income that's earned in our businesses. But first, we'll turn back to Miguel and learn a little bit more about Future Cities and his experience over the last several decades. Welcome again, Miguel.
Thanks, Josh.
And I guess for the listener, what is Future Cities? What do you do?
Well, Future Cities is something that I've been working on since I was 9 years old. I decided to be an architect after doing a lot of drawing when I was a kid, and consciously at 9 years old, I decided that's what I wanted to be. And I also needed
why architecture? Like, what drove you? Was there something with is this your parents, your family, your friends? Why architecture? What was that driving factor?
Poverty.
Poverty.
We came here to Canada in 1965. Very very modest family. But one thing my dad did, fortunately, is buy a used Rambler and drove us all over Eastern Canada, Northeastern United States, New York, Chicago, Washington, and sitting 15 hours straight in the back seat, looking at the landscape go by and looking up and kinking my neck, looking up at skyscrapers in New York, in Chicago. I really got a great sense of observation and analytical capacity to observe. And when I got home, I started drawing what I saw in our little attic, one-bedroom apartment that we lived in. And so those trips really inspired me to change my world.
But that's great. But I know today it's not just about architecture. It's not just about being an architect. Future Cities is actually a whole lot more than that. So what other facets of the real estate profession does Future Cities cover?
Well, combined with my personal company as my personal name, Miguel Escobar Architect, I'm also a chartered real estate broker. And through Future Cities, I do other activities such as urban planning, general contracting, interior design, and consulting lobbying. So I basically have 6 professions that I'm registered actively right now.
That's a lot of hats you wear. Identity crisis much? Do you ever have a conflict, where you have one client that comes in for certain or many of the different facets that you offer? Does one compete against the other? Do you find yourself in a position where you have a conflict of interest because you're trying to design the right thing, but it might not be right for another aspect?
I'm very careful with that. When I'm looking at I'm wearing my hat as a real estate broker. I will tell my client, what not to buy. That's free. I'm an architect. I'll tell them, I'm not letting you buy this building. But if I do like a building, I will bring in a building inspector who will basically tell us whether the building is in a good state or what repairs need to be done. So I'm very, very careful with that. In fact, the Order of Architects knocked on my door one day, and for about 4 years I had an investigation because they were asking basically the same question. So I explained to them,
like how you can wear so many hats, or how do you deal with your clients?
Yes. And basically after 4 years, they were really getting on my nerves and pushing me. But I basically met with them and explained to them how I operate, and made a few tweaks on my website, which was one of the things that they were concerned about. But after it was all finished, they let go, and actually the gentleman actually shook my hand and said, I actually wanted to meet you because you have a very good reputation. Why didn't you tell me this 4 years ago?
Doing his job. He's doing his job.
But yeah, that's what they're there for. They're there to protect the public, and that's great. And
now it started off as architect, and did it evolve quickly to add all the other divisions or other aspects of real estate? And why did you go into them? Like, you weren't busy with one, you had to just kind of kill yourself with all these other aspects?
Well, as my career evolved, I was meeting different difficulties and trying to get things done. I was seeing my friends in real estate making a lot more money than I did, especially since I was designing the building. I was responsible for it. And at one point I said, I should be doing this. I'm correcting a lot of mistakes that are coming in. clients would ask me to prepare construction drawings based on the deals that were made, and they would freak out because sometimes the costs were completely above their budget, and they would come and ask me, how come this is? And I said, well, that's what's in your lease or your conditions of purchase of sale, and Schedule C. And so I said to myself, I know this stuff, and I think I can do a good job as well.
I guess it's your way. A lot of manufacturers go vertical. They try and get their raw materials, manufacture, and then distribute in sales channel. I guess this is your way of going vertical, is really touching on many aspects. So your customer stays in house and doesn't go to a competitor.
And that's what was happening to me. I was losing clients that were going to real estate brokers, and they were referring them to other architects and designers. And today, I work with a lot of CEOs, REITs, pension funds, and I take them from A to Z. If a client comes to me and needs a very specific service, I can plug those holes as well. But I can basically take them from the site selection, the negotiation of the purchase or the lease, the design, the construction, all the way through, and the life cycle of the building.
And there's no doubt that, of course, there's marketing. There's a whole team that surrounds you. And when we come back a little later, we'll pick up on that and that. We're talking with Miguel Escobar of Future Cities, and later on the program, we'll speak with Nick Moraitis, tax partner, and talk about the challenges of income splitting in today's world, especially with the federal budget around the corner. Stay tuned.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. The voice you are not hearing tonight is Dan Delmar. He is on a family day in Toronto. The rest of the country except Quebec is on Family Day. But in studio with us this evening, we welcome and we have Miguel Escobar of Future Cities, talking about many different aspects of the real estate profession. And later on in the program, we're going to welcome Nick Moraitis, tax partner at FL, and talk about some challenges of income splitting now that a lot of them have been kind of taken away from Revenue Canada. And with the budget next week, we'll see what else they're going to tackle. But we're going to come back to Miguel, and Miguel is part of his job is urban planning. Part of his job is at Future Cities is really building and understanding the cities. And I guess I would, in the spirit of learning from your experience, Miguel, what would be maybe one of the biggest or most challenging jobs or projects that you worked on, and what was your takeaway from it?
I think the most challenging one was the design ideas competition we won in Beijing, China. It basically brought together all my expertise in architecture, urban design, management, looking at the future of cities, and that's when I came up with the name Future Cities. It was a name that I took from a drawing that I made when I was in grade school, a drawing that was published in the school commission calendar. And by chance, the name wasn't reserved in Canada and the United States. I registered it. And it basically tells what we do. From architecture, urban planning, urban design, real estate, municipal management. I worked for the City of Greenfield Park for 5 years as urban planning and technical service director, as well as director general.
I'm sure there was some lessons that you learned from there too, and what to apply.
It was a very, very colorful municipality. I'll stay at that for the moment, but I did learn a lot from that, and that helped me to develop my capacity as a lobbyist, which I do for many corporations and multinationals here in Montreal that are coming in from overseas and need to understand how politics and zoning changes work.
Now, I understand, architecture and real estate, its reputation is big, and it's certainly about your projects, and sometimes the people know the projects instead of knowing who you are. So from a marketing aspect, whether you're thinking from early on when you started your experience in your company versus today, what are you doing from a marketing aspect? How are you getting people to know that you exist and you can do, especially with the so many different facets of real estate that you're touching?
Well, it's true that a lot of people know my projects, but not too many people know who I am. I've been in this business over 30, 40 years, worked on some major projects in Montreal. I was the architect for Ogilvy's for 15 years. I designed the project that's going up now on La Montagne. I took it through all the zoning approvals process at the city, obtained approvals for a 20-story tower. Now, the Vimco and Holtz are building the project with a new set of professionals, but that's something I worked on at the time.
So do you kind of walk around with a portfolio of projects and say, hey, this is who I am?
I hardly have time to put my portfolio together. It's crazy, but no, I mean, we work for a lot of very high-end, high net worth individuals, REITs, pension funds. We get a lot of referrals from lawyers. We've worked on some very high-profile projects, public projects for the Quebec government and the city that a lot of people know about, but I won't mention here. So because of that, we've developed a really good reputation with law firms, and they pass us on to clients that want to deal with reputable firms.
So basically, you're really managing relationships. You're not necessarily blasting social media or putting publications in the paper or sitting on a weekly radio show, but you're really working on your relationships.
Absolutely. And when I do meet clients and they ask me, well, who are you? What have you done? I show them my half-baked portfolio, and they say, oh, wow. Well, they know my projects, but they wonder how come, they haven't heard of me before. But I think that's part of who I am and what my clients expect of me as well. I can speak of one client who's now passed away, Alexis Neon II. I worked with him in the Bahamas for 5 years, developed one of his projects there. On the plane, professionals going to the Bahamas would ask me, would tell me what they were doing, and they would ask me who I was meeting, and I just would keep mum. And I think my clients appreciate that. This is very
confidentiality is no question. It's key.
Extremely important.
We're speaking with Miguel Escobar, founder of Future Cities. Miguel, there's no doubt you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of experience, but you're not a one-man show. It does take a team around you to make sure that everything gets done and handled and be professional and communicative. Tell me, how many people are you approximately today?
Well, we were 15 at one point. We've gone down a little bit since then. My goal now is to work back up to 24 with a very different structure, surrounding myself with at least one professional that has one of my licenses that concentrates basically on business development, but the same type of approach that I have, person-to-person type of approach, who can also produce and gain another part of the salary, but who doesn't necessarily want to continue managing their own firm. And we're taking this internationally as well. We have a rep office now in Madrid. We're looking at going back to China through Hong Kong.
Is it tough to manage people from afar or find the right people, the right partners from afar?
It is, and that's why I'm changing the structure of how I'm doing that, because in China I was paying people a fair good amount of money to get me the projects, and they were getting the projects, but they weren't telling me about them. So the idea is to concentrate.
You need boots on the ground, or
yes, you need boots on the ground, and now with technology, we can produce here and develop relations with local partners, and that's what we're going to be doing.
You say technology must have affected your life drastically over the years, from the time you were drawing your skyscrapers just after you were 9 years old to today in the computer software. What's been the biggest technological change that stands out in your mind?
I think even till today, it's the fax. The fax.
I wonder how many people are laughing at us right now. Well, maybe not at us.
Well, I'll tell you, back in 85 to 1990, I was working on the construction and relocation of Mount Sinai Hospital from Saint Agathe to Montreal. And so I would drive every morning from Montreal to Saint-Agathe and back, 100 kilometers up, 100 kilometers down, 1,000 a week, working double shifts. After the first 6 months, it was crazy because I would be sending snail mail to the architects in Montreal or the engineers and asking for modifications, and it would take over a week to get a reply, and it was not usually the answer I wanted. So I convinced my boss, Director General at the time, Joseph Rothmart, one of my mentors, to get a fax. They finally squeezed some money together, and the day I put that into operation, I gave the architects a heart attack because it squeezed basically 1 week of time into 1 hour. There hasn't been such a compression of
with all the CAD, the computer software, and all that. Not something has been compressed as much as that.
Yes, because today you can take a fax and send it to China and speak to somebody over the phone while you're on the phone with him. Yes, when we won the competition in Beijing, I finished at 4 o'clock in the morning, got on the plane at 8. My drawings were in Beijing. By the time I got to my hotel room, the boards and the presentation panels were already ready for me. Our team was picking up on our projects at 9 o'clock at nighttime. It was 9 o'clock their time. So yeah, it's the technology today is great, but the one thing that really has changed the world of architecture and construction and communications is the fax.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from Quebec entrepreneurs. Soon we'll have our one piece of advice from tonight's guest, Miguel Escobar of Future Cities. But before we get there, and I know everybody's been on the edge of their seat, there is income sprinkling. Then there are curbing all the rules for income sprinkling that Mr. Bill Morneau, our lovely finance minister, came out with last July. February budget just around the corner next week. But as the entrepreneurs have to deal with, all their tax slips and figuring out where to pay their dividends and how they can pay their family members and use their family trusts, at least for 2017, possibly for the last time, at least for that aspect of it. We ask and we turn to our guru, Nick Moraitis, and say, Nick, what are the things that come to mind? What are the challenges for entrepreneurs when we're talking about tax on splitting income?
So the background started in the summer when the first idea came out and the law came out, very harsh law at the time, that the government felt that entrepreneurs or anyone in business basically should not be allowed to have family as shareholders, distribute income to the shareholders, let them pay whatever tax. So they came out with some very harsh rules. They backed off in October, made some general announcements that everybody then started waiting for the law because we work based upon the law. And the law came out, I think it was December 13, just in time for the holidays. And so it ruined a lot of lives for tax practitioners in the summer and all that. Because
tax practitioners usually have good lives to begin with.
Absolutely. So the idea now is, and this applies to all our entrepreneurs, and it doesn't just apply to the ones who've made it, who are very successful. It applies to anyone trying to make it. And I guess, and in our discussions with our clients and meeting people, there's a lot of frustration out there that just as they're starting to get some tread, all of a sudden these taxes are coming in. So now the government is basically saying, I think the simplest thing would have been is we really don't like you sharing income with your young kids going to school. So anybody from 24 and under, we really don't want you to share with them. Unless they work in the business, unless they gave up school and they're working more or less, not full-time, but say about 3 days a week, every single week, then we'll let you do what you want with them because they're contributing to the business. So that was a concept.
But it's never that simple.
Not that simple. It also works with spouses or anybody else in the family. So we got to remember this is a family situation.
So if they were talking about two unrelated people,
this does not apply. And unrelated to us also includes uncles and aunts and cousins. We're not related in the Tax Act also, although you tell many communities that they won't buy that. So if your family's working in the business and is doing at least the 3 days, I call it 3 days, it's 20 hours a week that they want, you're safe. You can do you can pay the dividends, you can pay salary, you can do as you wish.
And like you were doing before.
Absolutely. But if your family is not working, so you can't use that, then they turn around and bring in a whole bunch of tests. And one of the tests basically says, well, I guess if your family member owns enough shares of the company and has enough votes, so there's a financial interest in the family member, well, okay, we'll let you share income with them. So if the company makes a profit and you want to give them a dividend, you're allowed to do that. But then came the buts. And the first but was anybody who's a professional cannot use that. So then professionals are lawyers, accountants, dentists, doctors, vets, and I know I'm missing somebody, but anyway.
Professionals. Nobody likes
so
professionals.
If you have a
What about architects?
No, actually, architects for some reason are not identified as professionals. But I think
lucky you, Miguel.
I think as a profession, you do a grand job. Then the other thing they threw as a curveball, which caught a lot of us off guard, is that if you're in the service business, it also doesn't qualify. And
but what does service mean?
Well, that's
exactly?
it. What does service mean? An electrician and a plumber is a service. So are you telling me that an electrician cannot organize his company with his family owning the shares and split income with them? And right now, the way it's written, it seems to suggest it can't. Unless, of course, the electrician is selling a lot more parts and pieces than of his time. Then he might be okay.
Or he's going to have much bigger markup on his parts and pieces.
That's right. We're not
much
sure.
Less on the
so
service.
There's a lot. So the owning the shares doesn't always necessarily work. But that is something that you got to get to your professional. You got to look at your situation, and we're starting to see a lot of problems emanating from that. The other thing they came out and said was because companies are used, or the holding companies especially, are used as a retirement vehicles for entrepreneurs. That's why you're accumulating that cash. It's to reinvest, build up something, so when you do stop working, you got something.
It's not just for your children. It's not just for your children, right?
No, or if the business fails, you've got something, because businesses do fail, as we know. So then they basically came out and said, well, we let you split pension income between spouses. So you know what? We'll let you split dividend income between spouses if the main spouse, the one whose effort and contributions in the past led to the accumulation of wealth, is 65 years and older. So if that's the case, then you can dividend sprinkle with your spouse, because we will let you pension split also with your spouse. But that means that when you are getting your RIFs and you can split your pension with your spouse, it's not a big gift that they're giving you now. You can do the dividends. So the professionals are out. It put the whole question mark as to do we use trusts, which have been a mainstay for the last 20, 30 years, and now that comes back up, and we have to now turn around and look at this.
So there's a whole bunch of rules that people have to follow. It is not so straightforward.
Not at all. It's frustrating.
It's frustrating. You have to follow into it. And then, of course, you have to document everything, because if your family's going to work, somebody better see that. Somebody better see
prove that your family member worked 22 and a half hours last week.
Exactly. Thanks very much, Nick Moraitis, tax partner at FL. Lots of rules to navigate there. TOSI, tax on split income. And as we approach the last moment of our show, as we do each week, we'll turn to our guest, Miguel Escobar of Future Cities, and ask you, Miguel, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
Well, we had a little meeting last week, you and I, and we were talking about my favorite word, which is serendipity. And serendipity is a sequence or series of very fortuitous and happy events that lead to a very nice ending or beginning. And I was wondering, my life's been a little bit like that, very many serendipitous moments. And I was wondering how that is. And I realized that you have to make choices in life as to who you take on as clients. And sometimes the big bucks are dangled in front of you. But if you don't feel right about it, you might as well just move on and keep your life positive, because you have so many other negative things around you that cause other grief and pain, that you don't need to cause more grief and pain for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Miguel. Definitely good advice. Watch out, make the right calls, make the right decisions, and don't accept greed. Thank you very much, Miguel Escobar, Future Cities. Nick Moraitis, tax partner at FL. Stay tuned. Check all our past shows at flmontreal.com, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks very much, and have a great night.